My name is Larry Hamm. I'm a candidate for United States Senate, and I am 100% in support of reparations for African Americans who are the descendants of those who were enslaved in the United States. The United States government has given reparations to other peoples for grievances and for injustices done against them. If they could do it for other sections of the population, they can do it for African Americans. Um, Black people were brought to this country against their will. We did not come here as willing immigrants. We did not come here on boats where we purchased passage to be on. We were brought here against our will and to labor. And we labored in the colonial United States and in the United States as we know it today for 250 years. That's just if we talk about enslavement of Black people in the United States of America. Africans have been enslaved in the Western Hemisphere for nearly 500 years. But during those centuries, our labor was stolen. We did not give it freely, nor were we compensated for our labor. And when we were, quote unquote, emancipated, nothing was really done to ensure our economic well-being after so-called emancipation. Now, what is interesting in this story is that many people knew that there had to be an economic state if African people were going to have a decent quality of life. And there was some efforts toward this. General Sherman, in January of 1865, issued General Order Number 15, which expropriated 400,000 acres of slave masters' land with the stroke of a pen. It was a military order. It wasn't even legislation. Military order from General Sherman expropriated 400,000 acres of slave masters' land, and that land was distributed to slaves. And then based on that, to enslaved people, I should say. And then based on that, Thaddeus Stevens put forward, sponsored H.R. 29, which would give 40 acres and $50 to either the emancipated people or to their survivors if husband or loved one, family member had died in the Civil War. This bill was passed by the House of Representatives, and a similar bill was passed in the United States Senate. However, after the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, his vice president, Andrew Johnson, assumed the presidency, and he was a Southern sympathizer. He was actually a Confederate sympathizer. Not only did he veto H.R. 29, he issued executive orders that the land that had been given to the formerly enslaved under General Order 15 had to, in fact, be returned to the slave masters. And to add insult to injury, not only were African Americans denied any kind of compensation or restitution for their enslavement, after emancipation, some slave masters received money from the federal government for their former slaves. In other words, when these masters freed their slaves, the masters got money because of so-called an economic loss for the loss of their slaves. So it's really injustice upon injustice. But a debt is still owed. They stole us, they sold us, they owe us. And we should continue to demand reparations. I have been a supporter of reparations for decades, even before the founding of the People's Organization for Progress, which was founded almost 38 years ago in 1983. I've supported reparations. Some people, some other elected officials have come to this issue and to this position recently, but I have been a supporter of reparations for many decades now, and will continue to fight for reparations whether I'm elected or not, because it is a just demand. And I urge African Americans all over this country and African descendants throughout the Western Hemisphere to demand reparations from all of our former masters. We should have reparations. Our people should have reparations. So I support H.R. 40. That's the reparations bill that was sponsored by Congressman John Conyers. It's still in the Congress. Its primary sponsor now, I believe, is Congresswoman Barbara Lee. I believe she's the current sponsor because John Conyers is no longer in the Congress and he has passed away, but he was the sponsor of this bill for almost 30 years. So we support H.R. 40, and there is a companion reparations bill in the Senate. I believe it's S 1033, so we support that. But if I'm elected to the U.S. Senate, I will not only support those bills, which are bills to study the issue of reparations and to make recommendations. I, in fact, will sponsor legislation to repair, legislation to, in fact, give reparations to African Americans. And I hope I'll be able to get other senators to join me as co-sponsors in that. So let us continue the fight for reparations. Power to the people.